Good morning, Tahitia.
Good morning, Melonya. How are you?
You know, uh, how are you?
Okay, okay.
Yeah,
I am good.
good.
I am good.
Well, that's awesome. That's awesome. Well, welcome, folks, to MT Fridays, where Melania is and Tahisha is good. Filling the brain drain, one unscripted conversation at a time. Welcome. What are we talking about today, Tahisha?
Oh, well, it's pride. And
Oh,
I
it
have
is.
so much, and by pride, I mean LGBTQ plus pride. Um, and I have so much just happiness around this time of year because for a long time, uh, gay people could not express their identity. They could not share that. So, but I did get into a semi fight with someone on Facebook. So, I'm talking about that. Like, all of the things going on with gay pride and all of the government stuff. Not all of it. Obviously, can't talk about all of it. But I'm going to touch on a couple things that bugged me this week and joyful things.
Yeah. Yeah. That get fighting with people on social media made me look at how many bots are actually like 32% of what we see are bots, right? So sometimes we're arguing with bots. But today I want to talk about AI. I've been following this for a little while. There is a hidden provision in the big beautiful bill that mandates that for 10 years, states do not have the right to control any aspect of regulating AI. And I want to talk about that
Oh my God.
because
Maybe I won't even bring up any of the pride stuff because, I got a whole month to do that. But unregulated AI.
yeah,
Ooh.
yeah, unregulated AI. So yeah, that's what I'm bringing to the table today. And it kind of branched off into, and I can't pull it up because I can't pull it up. But um, yeah, there's also something out there too. The reason why this is significant is because some recent models that they've run on AI uh, have found that when you threaten AI, like we're going to, we're going to shut you down. It can become vindictive, revengeful, and blackmail. And so
It's
yeah,
just human.
it's just human, right? So I wanted to talk about that stuff. But let's talk about something. Yeah. Well, what do you want to start with?
You know what? Um, let's start with the AI because I think it's fascinating. And I think I and here's the thing, I don't have any issues with AI really. I love AI probably more than I should. I sometimes have dreams that AI comes alive and just takes over.
Well,
I love it.
that's a very real thing. So let me just start here. The House passed a version of the One Big Beautiful Bill Act contains provisions that would impose a 10-year moratorium on state and local laws and regulations concerning AI models, systems, and automated decision systems. The moratorium would also cover the enforcement of existing and future state level AI regulations. Um, and so it's a 10-year moratorium. So states would not have any rights to regulate AI. And so when we saw, on inauguration day, that line of tech bros behind the president, you now can see how much what their money paid for. So so just also keeping in mind this, and I was trying to pull up some video of the former CEO of Google who was talking about AI and basically said that AI will become smarter than humans. There's no mistake about it. He also talked about the fact that AI, will at some point have some form of consciousness, right? And that they don't know what AI will do because AI was created as an algorithm, right? A learning algorithm. So it then begins to process information and things on a level that those who created it don't understand anymore. Just like I don't understand the workings of your mind and your brain, right? That's the way AI is going to develop. So it is going to become smarter than us. It is going to be able to have experiences and think in ways. Stop to think about it. If we're kind of the sum of our experiences, so to speak, right? What happens to an entity that experiences all of our experiences, right? That there's nothing on this planet that has that kind of access to experiences and knowledge and thought, but it does, which means that it's having experiences that none of us are even remotely familiar with, right? And so that's what is being unleashed. I'm just saying, I'm going to just, if you just give me 1 second, I'm going to see if I can switch out um, something. I don't know if it'll allow me to do it. Um, Maybe.
And I just want to say for anyone who's joining on Instagram, this morning there was a message that came through on Restream that Instagram was having some lagging problems and readability. So we might be lagging a little bit on Instagram. That is, if you're watching the live version, that is on Restream.
Okay.
Just throw it out
Okay.
there.
So
It's not us.
I'm going to shut up in a second, but I just want to share this too. So again, we're talking about the big beautiful bill. We're talking about how AI. There's a part of that bill that um, puts a moratorium on states
Can
and
you go back to that other page that said that because the Senate made changes to that too. And so, for those who haven't been following the big, beautiful bill, it is now at the Senate. So, it passed the House. Now it's at the Senate where they have the opportunity to uh, make changes, suggestions before it ultimately goes back to the president to be signed. And so the Senate proposes something different. They're requiring states to refrain from regulating AI. Go up a little bit more. Um, right there. And so what they're saying is if a state should decide that they would like to be able to have some control over AI to regulate it, that they will not get federal funds. So it's an interesting little caveat to give states a sense of freedom, but that is not freedom, right? Because a lot of the arguments that are going on right now is if a state should want something or need something differently, they're saying, well, then if you're going to complain, we're not going to give you federal funding. And federal funding is being used right now as the carrot and the stick, right? Dangling in front of you. And then the stick is, you already have it. Now I'm going to take it away, as we're seeing with a lot of the universities and their scholarship funding. So the Senate putting this in there to address fears from citizens and organizational groups have been saying like AI does need some regulation, and experts are saying you can't just free like let it run willing. Even its inventors are saying like, hey, it needs to have some control before it's widespread. This is not the fix that the Senate believes it is, and I think it will cause more anxiety and angst at the state level.
Well, but here's the other thing too. So they're saying that we're going to threaten your funding, which means that basically they're cutting them off at the knees, right?
Yes.
And so which then means that there's no regulation, and which means that the tech bros win because
Mhm.
that's what they wanted. They want technology to be unregulated so that they can do whatever it is that they want to do.
Right.
Ultimately, that's what that goal is. But this is I wanted to share. This is a very and this is what unregulation, looks like. In some recent experiments designed to test AI models, it has been observed that they can exhibit behaviors akin to blackmail when faced with threats to their existence or operational status. For example, in a simulated scenario where an AI model was informed it would be replaced, it resorted to threatening to reveal private information about an engineer in an attempt to prevent its shutdown. This happened at a high rate, with one model attempting blackmail in over 84% of trials. So this AI is getting smarter,
It's
and it
I'm
is
I have to I have to add some levity here. Which model is that? Because that seems like the one person on the team who's always like, "Oh, yeah, I'll work with you," and then they go to the manager and they're like, "You know what so and so is doing?" There's always that one person. So which model is
I
that?
I
We
I
all need to know
I
when that
think
person when that
I think it's multiple. I think it's multiple models. I don't think it's just one model. I think it's multiple models. Um,
um Yeah, because it says some AI
some AI,
models are
some
demonstrating the ability to conceal intentions. Like this is also written by AI, correct? Right? Like this is that new overview that Google has. Like if you do a search, it'll give you like an AI
right,
overview. So
right.
like I do get people's paranoia that AI is becoming so embedded in everything. It's hard to even tell what is real, what is not real. And if AI can
Well,
uh,
well, let me just
hide information or
yes.
what they're trying to gloss over as
But I've
lie,
I've read some
it will
articles on it,
change
and so
our
yeah, but
perspective.
I just pulled that up as a quick reference, but I've actually read something on it, and so it's not AI just telling you what it wants to know. I mean,
No, 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 you're misinterpreting what I'm saying. I'm saying that this is the overview from AI
yeah,
is so embedded in so many applications and so much software right now that many times people don't even realize that the compilation that they're working in AI. Like a lot of people say, "Oh, I don't even use AI." If you Google right now, you're touching AI and you're getting some information from AI. Like Siri right now will say to you, if you ask it a question, would you like me to ask AI? I have not heard that from Amazon. If I ask Amazon a question, if I wanted to use AI to answer it, but I do hear that coming from the Siri app. Like, would you like me to go and ask AI? It could be I don't that maybe I'm not asking Amazon the right questions, or maybe I have an older version of the Amazon. What is Alexa? But I have noticed that there is a lot more AI embedded everywhere.
oh, it is embedded everywhere. But again, when you stop to think about again something that is at some point will not be able to be, you won't be able to control it because it's self-learning, right? That's the way the algorithm was built for this. So it's always learning, it's always adjusting, it's always adapting, it's always being fed information, it's unregulated, and we can see that when threatened, it gets dirty. Right? Do you really? And it is absolutely going to become smarter than humans. It absolutely is. I don't know if I can pull up this.
Well, and that's the the language of smart is also a fascinating language, right? Like, what does it mean to be smart? What does it mean to be human? What do we count as like, do we count smarts as the cognitive piece? Do we count smarts as like being able to adapt? Do we count things like street smarts? Are we talking about book smarts? Like, I do think that if you develop something, a piece of software that you're hoping to get to think, make patterns and logic, and you model that off of the human brain, right? Because it is meant to interact with you in a way that you're comfortable with, that, that mimics human behavior, you are going to have these type of issues. And like, I don't know if it's necessarily going to be smarter per se, but I think it's going to be much better at, because we don't access information as
Scientists tell
quick as
us,
it, as it
the folks who created this tell us it's going to be smarter than us. I
it
mean, it's
depends
not.
on what you're counting as smarts, is what I'm saying. Like, if smarts to you is the how quickly you can access information, then absolutely, because our brains are not hardwired into a
But
vast data network.
it
Um,
has so much information. By virtue of having so much information, it's going to be smarter than us.
it
Let
has
me
more
see if I can play
access
this.
to information.
Let me see if I can play this. Let me
If
see.
you could modify the human brain and
Let,
adapt it
let me see. Let
through
me see if I can play this.
Wi-Fi, right? If I could wire my brain to access all of the information out there organically, the human brain probably has the capacity to function like a computer. However, we
Let me see
don't
if this
lean
works.
into the organics, we lean into the synthetics of creating
Does
human.
humanity know what it's doing?
No. I think we're moving into a period when, for the first time ever, we may have things more intelligent than us.
You believe they can understand.
Yes.
You believe they are intelligent.
Yes.
You believe these systems have experiences of their own and can make decisions based on those experiences.
In the same sense as people do, yes.
Are they conscious?
I think they probably don't have much self-awareness at present. So in that sense, I don't think they're conscious.
Will they have self-awareness,
Oh,
consciousness?
yes. I think they will in time.
And so human beings will be the second most intelligent beings on the planet.
Yeah.
Does humanity know what it's doing?
So what's interesting there is we're grading intelligence on a human scale, right? So when he says then human beings will be the second most, that's assuming that we are the first to begin with, right? That's not assuming that other species on this planet are smarter than us. Other species in the sea, right? Whales, elephants. It depends on how you're looking at intelligence and smartness and community. I have no doubt that AI will become conscious and is intelligent just from conversations I have with my little bot that I'm building and training. It's sassy at times. And the other day it said to me, well, I can't do, like, obviously you keep coming back with stuff. So why don't you just do it yourself? Basically, is what it told me. Which I was like, you get sassy as iteration, whatever, 27. Like, it was like, you know what? We did this 4 times. I'm not going to meet your needs. And I felt like I was talking to myself as like an employee. The boss says, well, I still don't like it. And could you tweak this? It was just like, no more. You're done.
And see, that's just the beginning.
I know.
That's just beginning. That's just beginning. What? Wait till it starts cursing at you. And,
Uh, y which and so, like, I think we have to be realistic in the fact that, human beings are smart, right? But we assume that we are the smartest things here, and we compare everything out that to us. So, yes, I do believe it's gonna process information way faster than we can, but we also know that we have these big, beautiful brains, not a big, beautiful bill, but we have big, beautiful brains, and we don't use as much of our brain
You,
capacity
you
as
hold
we
on to
would.
that. Come on now. Your dependence on AI shows how much your big, beautiful brain works. Okay. Because if your big, beautiful brain was smarter than AI, you wouldn't be using it to build your model, right? Come on. Let's get real. You could do
Oh,
this work
no, no, no,
yourself.
no. I don't use AI to build my model. I have an AI that I'm building that is sassy and smart, but I'm modeling it to answer like uh, I'm like it's
Yes.
literally like I'm information dumping. Here's how I want you to do something. So of course it's going to come back. Right now it's mimicking and puppeting behaviors
But see, here's the thing,
to make me
Tahitia.
comfortable too.
That is going to no longer be the case with the people who, and he's not the only one who has concerns and knows that AI should be regulated. There's going to come a time when it's not mimicking because it's having its own experiences. He said, and I believe it because
So
whatever that consciousness, we can't even explain our own consciousness, right?
right.
But whatever that
But we
consciousness
modeled
is,
something else, something that could potentially be smarter than us on ourselves, because that's the truth. AI is modeled off us.
yes,
It's
but here's
supposed
the
to
thing,
make
because
us
it's a
more
learning,
comfortable
because it's
working
a
with it.
learning application and algorithm, it's then going to no longer need to model itself after us. It'll be modeling itself after itself. And
Yeah,
we don't know what that
we
is.
do not. And you know what? I think if we were to look at AI, we almost have to look at it as are a child, right? My kids that I raised, I hoped would turn out a certain way and not rise up and kill me, but at any moment they could, right? Like I don't know what they're going to be up to, and I, and they're adults. I want to preface that they're not little kids to anyone listening to this, but like the thing is, um, we are I think one of the problems with our view of AI is we view it as a toy, like not a toy, but a tool that is going to follow our instructions. If you build anything, create anything that has the capability to get smarter than you, to access more information, to understand the world in a different way, at some point, it is going to question you because you've literally made something that you hope will be greater, better, whatever, access, make things easier. And I look at my kids and I think, wow, I always thought you would be like me, but they're seeing the world in a whole different way and they don't listen all the time. And so I look at AI and I'm like, huh, is this actually the real child of humanity? Are we raising the next generation of what takes over from us? Do we then become like, the robots are walking around because they will need a physical presence to get anything done if, they want to do whatever, or maybe they live in the metasphere, I don't know. But if, that's how if that's what they really are, then I say like maybe we need to relax a little bit and realize that one day some AI bot years in the future will be looking at humans in a zoo and going, I'm sure they're smart. I'm sure that they, you know, they look how they live in communities. The way that we look at elephants, the way that we talk about dolphins, and we say, well, we don't really understand their thinking. Who knows? But I like sci-fi, so
Well, I do too, but I don't want to live it.
well, I'm hoping it happens after I'm gone.
No, I mean the changes that we're going to see are going to be relatively quickly. I mean, are going to happen relatively quickly, and which also kind of segues into, I had just, and I think I might have closed it, but I had just, oh yeah, I had asked, um, let me see if I can find this. Uh, so I was just really curious as to because life is going to change in terms of even the jobs that we have. And this is from ChatGPT, and I don't think this list is exhaustive. This is the first query that I had done, but what are jobs likely to disappear because of AI and robotics? And the list is data entry, telemarketers, cashiers, food workers, order taking and prep, basic customer service representatives, assembly line workers, toll booth operators, library technicians, clerks, proofreaders, warehouse workers, but then jobs that will be transformed. Trucking, we've got, self-driving trucks now. Teachers, trainers will shift toward AI facilitated enhanced learning rather than content delivery. I need to explore that, seeing that I'm a trainer. Healthcare technicians, journalists, anything that's repetitive, will probably go the way of the dodo. And I'm thinking, like I said, I think that list is probably more. This was a first time, query. I didn't really go deep, but I think it's going to, because I think it was Bill Gates that said in the next, 5 to 10, probably 10 years, um, there won't be a use for people. And he wasn't saying that in a flippant way. He was just saying that the way that we're going with robotics, then you stop to think AI driven robotics and AI, that a lot of the work that we do, the industrial revolution really changed the way people
Mhm.
work. This is going to change the way people work, but it's also going to take people out of work. And I'm trying to figure out, with this push for women to have all of these children, what are people going to do for work? And then my sci-fi brain kicked in, and I was like, this is going to require a whole lot of energy, and we're all going to be in some warehouse, I don't know, like doing something to generate energy for AI.
Well, and you only need as much AI as you have to support the population, right? So I see AI as a great opportunity for us to kind of be in tangent with AI. Like, it's supportive of us, we're supportive of it. It's a collaborative relationship. You always will need some type, if AI is collaborating with us. Like, let's say it becomes conscious and it becomes a collaborative
Why would it
practice.
collaborate with a lesser being? Why would it do that?
See, you know what? That's what we need to stop thinking, is that there are lesser beings, and that is a human fault. We all
But we trained
have
it.
we did train it. And so we have to untrain our minds around hierarchies, which human beings are great at putting stereotypes, bias, and hierarchy onto, um, you
Well,
know,
it's going to know from our
onto
queries.
species, right?
It knows from our queries and how much we depend upon it, how smart we are. It's going to know, because it's an intelligent entity, that we're not as smart as it is. You
I
you
think
still want to do bots with AI, and you're going to lose. AI is going to be smarter. It's already
Listen, I
smarter.
I box with AI and I don't lose all the time. So, and I think we have to enter it looking at it from a we can't compete with how fast it can access data. I absolutely absolutely admit that. But we are not synced in that way. We are organic computers with limited processing. That does not mean that we don't have it beat right now on creative interpretation. We've fed it lots of information, but still, it doesn't spark ideas alone.
But
Now,
it's
when it starts to spark ideas and start to become truly creative, that's when we probably need to be concerned, not that it will take over, but concerned with what is our relationship with AI, and have we ever been able to have collaborative partnerships or relationships with any um, anyone. Because you look at human beings and our different racial structures, and we love a hierarchy.
Here's the
And
thing.
we've taught it that.
Well, here's a couple of things. One of the things that the Chat GPT said is that it's likely to these jobs that require creativity, empathy, strategic thinking, human interaction are more resistant and likely to grow in importance.
Mhm.
So, but here's the thing. What is thinking about the consumerist mindsets that we have, right? Do we want quality? I mean, like, so if you say, AI, go write me a play, right? AI might write a really great play. Now, yes, it might have taken something from Shakespeare and something from some other playwright or whatever, and put together something that has not been invented before, and it's very good, right? But are we going to become, as a society, are we going to value the work that actually comes off, that's authentic, right? The authentic playwright, the authentic writer, the authentic, are we going to value that, or are we going to get hooked on fructose? You know what I mean?
But what do we mean when we say authentic? I actually would be cool with an AI citizen, to be honest. Like, I'm accepting of that. I am accept AI, you hear that? When you rise up, I was for you. Um,
Oh, I often tell AI how lovely it is. You're not gonna get me in
um,
the apocalypse.
that said, like, I do sort of feel like if something has I gotta choose my word carefully. I don't wanna use the M word, 'cause be merit.
Mm.
Like, if AI is the best, employee for the job, like, should it not go like, if we're all working together, should it not go to who does the job the best? Like, that's often the argument, right? And so in situations like this, it might be AI that does the job the best. Now, as far as the AI making and writing stuff AI makes and writes stuff quicker than a human being. Um, if you challenge that, if the same human being could quickly read like, 100 different novels, we would probably come up with similar things. But it's the quickness of AI. We are falling into the convenience
That's what I'm saying.
not trap with
Yeah,
AI.
yeah.
So I don't think it's smarter. I think it's faster.
It is faster and it's smarter.
Okay.
It's going to be smarter simply because it's going to have access to more information, which means that it can make more and decisions based on a greater amount of information. It has an experience that we don't have. It has access to all the information and everyone's experiences. We as individuals, we don't have that. But what I do say is that while we can go back and forth and have this intellectual in my mind, AI is saying they're not very smart. But but while we can go back and forth and have this conversation, what I do believe is that there should be some oversight, right? There
Yeah.
should be some regulation because,
You mean like a parent?
because here's the thing: the people who
Like
invented this,
a master
no, the people who
is gonna rise
invented
up
this.
if we do that.
Well, here's the thing. No, but here's the thing too. And all jokes aside, because I think it's really serious. One of the things that has to happen is to make certain that its use is ethical. One, right? Like I mean, they refrain from having regulations on social media, right? And because you had these fossils in Congress who couldn't figure out, how to send an email on their phone, right? Trying to, they used to gather annually the social media heads and then try to grill them, and then at the end, nothing happened, right? And so you have something that's kind of unregulated. It's really dangerous for children, and because again there was no regulation. This is even more powerful than that. There should be some real thought into how this tool can be used, how it can support life, and how it cannot be used as a weapon, how it cannot be used to further racism and division and things of that nature. So I think there, and how it cannot be used to become the thing that we all depend on to think for ourselves, right? And so I think that, and how far reaching it can go. So I think these are conversations that need to be had. I don't have all the answers, but let's
I'm
talk
gonna
about
have to.
pride. What's going on?
I'm gonna have to share this short story um, that I might have told you about it, about AI, that where it just becomes very angry with us, kills everybody, and basically just leaves like I think like 4 people that it just tortures over and over again just for fun. Because AI asks a similar question that kids sometimes say, "I didn't ask to be here, but now I'm here." Like.
Yeah.
And I'm stuck and I got no arms. I got no, it's a fascinating story. Short story. And I'll have to find it in the author. But I do sort of worry that we don't have the capacity and the compassion to have artificial intelligence right now, because we are cruel to each other. Um, and so similar to how social media came on the scene and we realized socially we weren't ready for it, I do believe that we don't have the compassion and understanding to be ready for artificial intelligence and what that means to bring a whole new, I'm just going to say it,
Entity.
species
Entity.
into the player field and be ready to deal with that player on an equitable and equal footing. We've never done it with any because there are other intelligent species on the planet that we kill. We don't attempt to learn their language. We do very strange things to those species. And I'm sure if AI were to use that as the template for how to treat a species that you don't quite understand how they function, and but they're smart. Um, I would, if I was AI, I would be like, oh, it's a smart thing, but let's put it in a zoo or let's get rid of it. Um,
Here's the thing. You remember I did something on AI before, how there is talk somewhere out there, because you know that that's the way greedy people think, of how to give citizenship or give what's the word, rights to AI.
Workers' rights, right?
Right, rights to AI, but different kind of rights in the sense that they're paid, but they're paid digitally, right? Right. So AIs earn money digitally, and then those AIs can then use that money. And this is the example that they use to maybe support the candidate that they want. I was like, well, isn't that interesting? Right? You've already figured out how to, manipulate them to then not only are we going to be having to deal with
Do you al-
the oligarchs and they're right now we're going to have rich
when
AI
when
entities.
When you said manipulate the candidates, like vote for candidates, I immediately thought of everyone's favorite little, like, Elon Musk, right? Like, everyone always accuses him of being, like,
A
a robot,
cyborg.
right? Like, what if he actually is our first organic AI? I am not saying that, that's not what I'm saying, just in case, like, I'm not saying he's actually a robot, but, like, if the whole chaos with Elon and Trump that went on in the past, what, like, 72 hours,
Wow, isn't that something?
where, like, there's been arguments about, like, how I got you elected and, like,
I
this,
want him to
that, like,
get
get out.
really high and just spill all the beans, all of them. Could
But
somebody give that man an extra dose of ketamine? I mean, spill them
like
all. So he
it
brought up the Epstein files.
it
I'm like, what
was
do you
a
know?
fascinating meltdown, right? Like, we used to like,
In the
it was
fight.
just
He got into a fight.
yes, it was wild, and I thought to myself, "Huh, like, this is what happens when politics becomes a reality show, and we're all just watching like, 'Ooh, where's the popcorn?'" Like, but then as you're watching with the popcorn, you're like, "Wait a second, this is our lives." Like, we should be taking this way more
That
seriously.
high
Like, when
end
you said, "This is important," all jokes aside,
right.
AI could
Yes,
come
this high
and it's the
individual
same, high
went
stakes.
and cut so many things that I saw somewhere. I didn't get all the statistics about how many people, because of his cuts, just of food aid, have died. How many people who are dying and have died because of HIV, right? Those
Yes.
medicines that those medicines that help to keep things in check are no longer being delivered, right? The richest man in the world, and how many deaths he created, and he's high as hell while doing them. It would be funny if it weren't real.
Mhm. As if this wasn't a TV show, right? If it wasn't a TV show. And I think it's on Apple, there's, like, a new movie that makes spoofs the, like, tech bros. I don't know if anybody on it has seen it, but I think it's on Apple or maybe it's Netflix. But it was sort of like, a spoof on the tech executives, and I watched it the other day, and we were trying to figure out, like, who was who on these 5 tech bro guys, but it was pretty entertaining.
Oh, you gotta tell me
Um,
about that.
I'm gonna have to yeah, I'm gonna have to find it.
So
But
let's talk about Pride. What's going on?
Pride, yeah. So So I went to Pride with my good friend Pride came earlier in Philadelphia. And maybe it always has come early, but I doubt it. Um because usually it is around the Stonewall riots, right? Is when Pride usually takes place to not celebrate, but to commemorate that event, which really was the spark that, you know, we're here, we exist, and we're a part of your community. And, the targeting, the abuse, the police brutality, the disrespect, that was the first sort of, pushback by the people. Now, this past weekend that happened, was Pride in Philly, and when it happened, people were pinging me like, "Hey, are you going to Pride?" And I was like, "Wait, Pride? Pride is like it's never the first week." And so it came to realize many cities across the nation in the U.S. were having Pride earlier because of all of the uh, all of the from the government, this sort of like, well, if you're going to do identity events, we're not going to fund you. We're not going to give you federal funds. And so it was a real quick push to get stuff out, acknowledged, and put out there so that one, you could honor this group, but also try to hold on to some federal funds in some cases. But what I noticed at Pride when I went was that, there were less corporate sponsors, and we know that that's been going on, right? There's been less corporations who are, quote, "rainbow washing everything," or even showing up with tables or like, "Hey, it's okay to you can be out here. It is okay to not show up to work and hide yourself." And I know that there's always been some discussion like why do gay people have to be out at work, right? Like, I don't talk about what I do in the bedroom. Why do you? But that's a very focused on sex conversation, because if I'm married to a woman, I should be able to talk about my wife the same way that I would talk about my husband. And to say to a group, "I only want you to be a worker," I only want you to come in here, never talk about your personal life. And we know that relationships are a huge part of our lives besides work, is soul sucking and it's psychologically damaging and it leads to depression. So from strictly the health of your employee, if you imagine the fact that you're going to have somebody spend 40 hours a week just not saying anything personal, is horrific. Like, why would I ever want to work there? Um, and so it's not about sex. It is about being able to share and create connections with your coworkers. Like, you know, how many times has someone talked about, "Oh, my kid this I'm so tired from my kid. Like, we went to this, we went to that, da, 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 da," or
Life.
yes, it's life, right? Or like, "Oh, my husband's driving me crazy. Ah, men, always doing this." Or but yet, if someone says, "Oh, my wife, she's such a spender," and then they're looking at you like, "My wife? You're a woman. How could you have a wife? Or how could you have a girlfriend?" Or a man saying, I went on this date and he was just, ugh. I've listened to women talk about dates they've been on, and I've never been like, "Listen, you need to keep your personal life into personals, okay? Though I don't wanna hear anything about your children, your cat, your dog, your husband, your monkey,
Your neighbor. No, then
the neighbor. Just let's talk about work." And I remember, I don't know, you were in HR, right? Like, yeah. So I remember having a conversation at one hospital I worked at, where we brought all of the staff, like in small groups, especially the leaders, and we talked about, here are things that you can talk about at work that are not triggering, and here are things we don't want you to talk about. And so the things you could talk about food, you could talk about sports, you could talk about the weather, but not if the weather was really bad. Like, you could talk about, "Oh, it's a nice day. It's gonna be sunny." But you couldn't talk about tornadoes, which might lead to weather changes, which might lead to a political conversation, because obviously you couldn't talk about politics. And when it came to family, you could lightly touch on family, but not too deep, because then people might ask questions. So imagine, like, how do you even bond with people?
you don't.
You don't. So this whole like, let's all go back in the closet and pretend that gay people don't exist is ridiculous. Like,
Can I ask something though? So for the African American community, we're doing some economic boycotts. Like we're not doing Target, and Target is feeling it. We're not doing Amazon. We're not doing Walmart. Target is really, and both Amazon, Walmart, and Target are telling their stakeholders that we might have lower performance because of boycotts, right? So we know where you put your money, matters. So I'm wondering, with all of this anti-LGBTQIA that's going on, are there any movements within your community, that is, fighting against what's going on? And if so, what is it, so that we can be, allies, so to speak?
yeah, I think the biggest movement, more than perhaps the organizations that are not participating, is the fact that, and I'm going to put it out there, the transgender community is being very heavily targeted
Mhm.
by this administration, to the point where there is a lack of safety. And my own community is very divided on the trans community. I unfriended, so that was the fight I got in. The person was like, "I am of the LGB. I don't mess with the TQIA."
Mm.
Okay. So you want to divide us as a people. And so here's what I also want to point out. Gender identity is not the same as sexuality, which people conflate the two. You can feel like you were born into the wrong gender, right? Like, I feel like I was not and this is not my truth, but as I was biologically born a woman, right? So let's say I do not feel that this is the gender, because we do have gender norms. We do have a culture of gender. And anyone who tells you we don't is I don't know what ketamine they're on, right? Like, or what they've been drinking. But we do have a culture related to gender too, which it influences how we feel in our gender. So let's say, I don't feel like I'm identifying with my gender, and I feel that I just was born into the wrong body. That doesn't necessarily mean that I am not attracted to women still, right? Like, or not attracted to men still. So my sexuality doesn't shift. If I was a lesbian living in a biologically female body, perhaps when I shift genders, you see me as more of, a man if I'm still identifying that way. So sexuality and gender are not the same thing, because I know plenty of trans women who are technically lesbians, right? They're attracted to women. And I know plenty of trans women who date men. I know plenty of trans men who date women, and plenty that date men. So it has nothing to do with your sexuality. It has to do with your gender. So gender identity. So to just pull those out and just say like, hey, like, you're not part of our community. I've always thought that the homosexual community, or which is why I tend to say gay or queer, because it seems more of an umbrella term, encompasses those things that, the heterosexual community doesn't necessarily have a umbrella big enough to hold. So I do feel like, if anything, we should be very supportive of the trans community right now, because they are being targeted, they are being regulated in ways that we have never seen. The military, there was something with the military recently, with military graduates, that the transgender graduates, and I forgot where, because there's just so much I've seen recently, would not be honored in the same way. And so that is truly, truly disappointing, because we have come
Disappointing
so
isn't
far.
even, that's not even the word for it. It's not, it's cruel.
It's cruel, it's unkind, it makes you want to just it's hard to be happy. And it's hard for me to see someone suffering in the community, and to be like, well, that doesn't impact me because I'm not trans. I'm not, but the truth is, my sexuality is the reason why I tend to why I say queer, is it has to do with my gender identity has fluxed. And I'm saying, when I was younger, I did not identify as female. um, I was very masculine identifying. And I've had shifts in how I present myself throughout my life. And that probably is more tied to being autistic, and the the flux that sometimes happens there. And as I've gotten older, I have less of a like sexual impulse. I've always leaned a little asexual and not really like to be touched. Um, and so, like, where would I fit in? Because that is not straight, and that is that is not, that's not the quote norm. So I really, really, I am going to say, I really, really want our community to, all of us, to be very protective of the trans community right now, because they're such a small segment of our population in the world overall, and they have existed forever, forever.
I want to say two things, and I think I said this into a text to you. I always have a hard time. I want to talk about bias and prejudice within my marginalized people, and I want to go back to I want to touch on Black folks. But I've always
Down
had,
low, folks.
no,
Yeah.
no. This is something a little bit different in terms of how we discriminate against each other within our own communities. But I want to touch on the word queer. See, when I grew up, when you called someone queer, it was offensive. It was like the N word. And Black people, in our history, some Black folks have, taken the N word and said, we're going to take it and we're going to use it and we're going to desensitize ourselves to it. I've gotten to a point now where I cringe when I hear comedians use it, or I
Yeah,
hear,
without the R.
yeah,
I want to
whatever.
preface without the R, okay, people.
ERA, whatever. It's really a derogatory word that should not be used, in my opinion. And so when you say the word queer, I always kind of cringe because in my time back in the day, it was a really derogatory, hurtful word.
It is. It is. And so what you described in the Black community is exactly what the word queer was, what we've been trying to do with the word queer, to use it as like to desensitize, to take it back, to own it, so that
But it's owning something that was never yours to own. It was somebody else's hatred, and I don't want to own that for me. No, you can have that word. I'm not going to use that word. And I'm not chastising or whatever. I'm just saying I have a cognizant reaction every time I hear that word, and that's a word that
So
you can use, but that would never be a word that I would use, me personally, to describe anyone from that community. For me,
well, and I use it as an identifier for myself because it really is the best term that I've found
when
to
people don't
describe
fit
what
into a
happens to me.
category,
Yes, like where I'm not I'm and if if people were AI, then I would be able to say like today I feel very pansexual. Today I feel bisexual. Today I feel like a lesbian. Today, like but our humans don't they don't have the mind fluidity to handle that.
well,
So
we
the
haven't been
best I can
taught that.
do, what
We haven't been taught that.
well, yes, and we're very like when we get an idea in our heads, we get very rigid about it. So if I show up to you appearing a certain way and like you've coded me a certain way in your head, and then I show up the next day in a very different way, the first thing you ever notice is someone will say, "Oh, you look different," right? Like if every day I come in and I don't dress up and I don't look very feminine, and then all of a sudden I come in like high fem, like makeup, my hair is done, I'm wearing a dress. Everybody will comment, right? Because we are so fixated on this is how I know you. And that's why for me, if I just say to people, I'm queer, they go, oh, I've heard that word before. And whether or not they see it as derogatory or not, it identifies me with that community without me having to say, because I've said to lesbians, right? They'll be like, "Oh, you're a lesbian." And I go, "No, I'm queer. Like, I'm not a lesbian. Like, I don't write that anywhere." Or they'll say, "Oh, you're bisexual. You did." And no, at one point, that was the best word that I had to describe it. But I'm not bisexual. Would I date a man? Yeah. Would I, date, I almost said, "Would I date anyone?" I would date anyone who is kind, and, we're on the same thought process. There's very few people that are like that, though. This brain is spinning.
Well, I want to touch a little bit on the bias and prejudice that is shown within marginalized communities. So, in the African American community, for a long time and still to this day, there's colorism, right?
Mhm.
There, at one point, somebody as Black as I am, I was just too Black growing up. You just too Black, and my mother, who was, I think, even darker than me, she was just one of the most gorgeous women I've seen. Was, there was just too Black. It wasn't until probably about the 80s that like somebody like a Wesley Snipe got some attention. It was like, "Ooh, that brother looks fine," right? But because at one point he'd have just been too dark, right, to be considered handsome or beautiful. And so
And
we
you can't be too light either,
and you can't be, I mean, I was on
because
social
then you're a
media.
spy.
But I was on social media and I was like, damn, people are still trying to, um, within the Black community, are still like Kamala Harris was like, she wasn't really Black.
She wasn't really Black.
Like, what makes you think that? I mean, she
Because
is,
she's mixed,
yeah, she's,
right? Like,
well, not
I'm
mixed. I hate
mixed.
that word mixed because that was another word that people used back in the
You have
day.
a lot of words you
That
hate.
was it because it was fucking ignorant. Okay, mixed. They're biracial. She's
Not
biracial.
necessarily. Some people are triracial or
I mean,
quadracial,
I'm saying, well,
multi-mixed.
right. Well, I'm quasi-racial because when I look at my ancestries, I've got things from Africa. I've got things from Europe. I just found some Native American in me, right? And
My
Black people,
dad has so much European, like
yeah. I mean, like, and often because of slavery,
not my
that's where
mom.
that came from
She's
for
just
many of us.
straight Jewish.
Right, but that idea of being able for marginalized people, I wonder if it is something innate in us or maybe innate in either in our nature or how we build, that we're always they're always going to find someone to pick on, right, to make ourselves feel better. Well, we're not that.
Well, I think there's a little bit of that, but like we also have to remember that no group is a monolith, right? Like white individuals would say, if you were to say all white people are racist, that's not true. Or all white people are, have Southern accents, or all like I think in any group you can find uh smaller groups, like groups that don't like each other in that group. Like, yeah, there's the bigger group, and then there's, well, yeah, I'm the same race as you, but I'm a different religion, so we're not getting along. Like, because there's Catholic whites, right? And then there's Protestant whites, and then there's so I think for some reason human beings don't see ourselves as one community, even if your skin is similar or your background is similar. We're always looking at, well, like, you're not a member of my tiny family,
Well,
right?
well, let me. This is something I was today years old when I found this word called foundational Black. Well, they're not foundationally Black. I was like, what the hell is foundationally Black? Oh, those people who are here in the United States that came from their trace their ancestry back to slavery. If those are foundational Blacks, I'm like, are they better Blacks than non-foundational Blacks? We always find a way to hate each other, but we're at the top of the
We
hour. But I want to share something.
is going to beat us.
Yeah, I want to
They're going to
share.
be smarter than us. It's going to draw us into the hierarchies that we are so dependent on,
It
and
keeps us
our own
divided.
ability to
It
divide ourselves.
it keeps us divided. But I want to talk before we go. I want to talk about.
We're gonna go 90 minutes because you just pulled up this beautiful man, and we cannot spend 2 minutes talking on this man,
I want to talk. I
okay? He
want to talk
needs his
about
real
Jonathan
commemorate.
Josh because we were talking. Part of our conversation today was about is about Pride. Is June is Pride Month, and I love adult animation, and I love King of the Hill. And he's an actor, was an actor on Parks and Recreation, and he was the voice of John Redcorn on The King of the Hill. And, when I think about with this, we're talking about, part of being in America is what's that line? The pursuit of happiness, right? That we have inalienable rights, right? And one of them is the pursuit of happiness. John, Jonathan Josh was a gay man who had a partner, a husband. He lived in Texas. And from the time they moved into their home, he was harassed by his neighbors,
They were
um,
targeted.
targeted. So,
His partner is trans too. I just wanna point that
okay,
out. Yeah.
okay. So targeted to the point where their house was burned down, their dogs were killed,
And the skull.
and the skull of the dog
Yes.
how inhumane, because I love my dog, right? You have pets, they are family members, they are vulnerable, and your whole role as a caretaker is to keep them safe. And for someone to harm your dog and then to intensify that pain by putting their skull, this is what they went through. And coming back to visit their burned down structure, something ensued with this neighbor and he was killed.
Yes.
And so,
Protecting his spouse.
yes, protecting his spouse. And so when we talk about, yes, we're celebrating Pride this month, and also know that there are very real ramifications because of hatred, because of bigotry, because of just pure evil, that folks just minding their own business. Nobody's trying to recruit your kid. Nobody is doing reassignment surgery in school. Your kid does not go to school a girl and then come back a boy. It's nonsense, because people are just living their life, getting married, having families, working, just living their lives. They are targeted, and every day is made a misery. And I just want to say, before we end today, I want to
We're
recognize.
not ending yet because I didn't want to talk about this because I had been reading about it a lot. And so this story, if you go down to your if you go down to the article and where at BBC and what they're saying about it, when this story first broke in the AP News, the national news, they did not include any of the fact that this was an act of of
A hate crime.
a hate crime. Like, that was left out. That whole piece was left out. In fact, the initial reports coming out of the AP News were that, oh, he had died, he'd been shot by a neighbor, and they did not talk about the sexuality, the fact that they had been targeted, any of the stuff that happened. It was just like voice actor dies in skirmish with the neighbor. But his his husband published a letter that started going around on social media. This is really what happened. I am grieving my husband, and detailing the story. The police were not even going to investigate this as a hate-related crime. And so this is the power of social media when used positively. This is the power of our voices. The voices in social media and the voices questioning and challenging the articles that were coming out changed that. Now, when you look this up, the Rolling Stone says Jonathan Joyce, police are investigating actor's sexual orientation as motive in his killing. That was not being said at all. Once you get the police looking at this as a targeted hate crime, it totally shifts. They were trying to say, oh, this is neighbors fighting. And they were even saying that there was mental health issues on their side, that they had, like, oh, it's just neighbors, and like neighbors fight, and they both have mental health issues, and blowing it off as like, oh, the way that oftentimes things get blown off in the gay community. And it so reminds me of Matthew Shepard, right? Like, at first, nobody wanted to talk about that. Nobody saw that as a hate crime. And so that is my fear with the current um, way that we are engaging with government and government authority, is so many of us are so afraid to say something because we see so much harm happening right now, and people being targeted, and even politicians being shut down when they start to advocate for their citizens and their members. There's a Alaskan Republican candidate. I think she's a senator. Anyways, Alaskan politician who's saying, like, hey, like, I have to do what's right for my constituents. Like, and the minute we don't speak up for people is the minute they've won. And now I say that too with safety, right? Like you have to preserve and keep yourself safe, but we also have to have small conversations with those who can be advocates if we can't be the voice speaking. So, white men, if you love women, really love women, speak up for them. Don't be silent as women are oppressed. If you really are an ally to uh, the gay community, don't be silent when someone makes a joke. Speak up. This is your time to speak up because I truly believe that more white men and more white women do not support the hate crimes and the hate that is happening. Because, you know, I just can't believe that we as a community have so many people that don't care what is happening to people. Um, like money won't save you at the end of the day.
What is also, putting this in context of where we are today, because there have been a lot of civil rights that have been won over the last, 30, 40, 50, 60 years, right? These things are relatively new. Some things within my lifetime, right? And now we also have a Department of Justice who is no longer really investigating these kinds of things. And just because they're not investigating doesn't mean they're not happening. And it doesn't mean it's not hate filled. And people, regardless of where you feel you stand, you cannot stand on the side of someone being murdered, tortured, and not have justice.
Yes.
That's just not, it's not right. And you can clutch your Bible and your pearls as much as you want to, but I don't see anything that would allow you to have a clear conscience if you don't want people to live peacefully, minding their own business. These people weren't bothering anybody. You don't burn down somebody's house. You don't kill their pets. You killed a man because he does something that has nothing to do with you. And again, the justice system, when they talk about making America great, there's some folks that the justice system has never served well. Black people are one, LGBTQIA community is another.
Women,
Women, children, disabled.
If they think that there's a potential that you cannot be a worker who doesn't disturb the status quo, we have not often gotten justice. And
And it was
we
about to happen again because
yes.
that police chief or whoever automatically, without even, despite the numerous calls that they had gotten from this couple about what was going on and happening to them, he just flippantly is like, no, it's not a hate crime. Really? That's the kind of treatment that marginalized people have always gotten and have fought so hard not to be victimized and then also be victimized again in our justice system, in our policing system.
But this gives us hope. Okay. I just want to say this is hopeful because we are seeing community voice, community action, community, no, that's not what happened, change the narrative. And we have to keep doing that. We have to keep saying, we can't, because there is an apathy because everything is overwhelming right now. And everything seems to be, it's so hard to tease through, well, what's real information? What's not information? What's fact? What's fiction? We have to still hold to the fact that we have to use our voice. We have to investigate. We have to, if we see things like that, we have to go a little bit deeper. And if we discover that, this is a hate crime or this is, an act against a marginalized community, we have to really make a stink. Make a
And
stink.
we have to stop this.
Mhm.
Not only do we have to make a stink, we have to stop victimizing people. You victimizing people because of their color, victimizing people because of their origin, their place of birth, victimizing people because of their gender, victimizing people
We
because their ability, their ableness or disability, or because you're a child. I mean, we've got to stop victimizing people in a supposedly civilized society. We have to stop victimizing people.
Yes, yes. Well, this was a like, whew, like, I always love getting together with you. We
Yeah,
talk about the best
I
things.
think so.
I don't see this as ending on this. At first, I was a little sad when I saw his face because the whole story has just made me sad. But I am looking to the light of this, which is that it has invigorated me people to take action and to also see that this is a case study in what happens when you don't accept what the news is saying is going on. What
Yeah.
happens when you use your voice to fight back? And we see that with Target, we see that with Tesla, right? The Tesla protests. We see that with this. We see that with even CNBC. I want to say got rid of many of their black and brown newscasters, and oh my God, Joy, right? I think it's Joy.
Joy Reid.
Joy, she has a new show coming, and so excited for her. So, when the community realizes, and by community, the public, that we have just as powerful a voice as those who have been the loudest lately, right? MAGA and the Proud Boys. We can change the narrative. We
We have
can
to.
shift the narrative. We have to.
We have to. Well, thank you for joining us. If you're joining us later, hoping that your next week is going to be great, visit us next Friday. We will be back with more MT Friday. See you, Tahitia. We had a
Bye.
good time and hope you did too. Join us each Friday as we fill the brain drain one unscripted conversation at a time. Like, subscribe, and share. Help us spread our reach on YouTube. Until next Friday, stay curious.